public IP followed by port number. Okay, Jenkins is here. See, Jenkins is basically used for CI/CD in the complete project, and we can customize based on our requirement. Customize in the sense for multiple tasks, and we can integrate multiple tools in Jenkins. Based on that, you can create your own project built in Jenkins. Okay. Now we'll discuss about the remaining concept in Jenkins. That is the types of project that we have in Jenkins. So the types of project in Jenkins is we have created freestyle, right? And we can store the so when we go here,
Sir, one thing, sir. If I change the username and password,
hmm,
there we'll provide the credential, right? You ask us to just a wrong username, any username and wrong password. But in my case, it is not getting failed, sir.
where you are saying wrong username, wrong password.
Wrong credentials.
Are
You
you
ask
saying
the
that
question.
you are getting an error in credentials?
Oh, no, sir,
Hmm?
not credentials. So you ask the. Let me open that question, sir. Just 1 minute. Identify the error message shown in console when for authentication failure.
Hmm.
Oh, that is the one.
Okay. So have you passed the see suppose when you create the credentials,
Yes.
when you create a credentials in Jenkins, so you need to pass the credentials. So how we are passing credentials?
We are going. When we selected the Git, there will be option like to add the credentials for there.
Right? And have you
Yes,
passed the wrong credentials?
yes, I have passed the wrong username and wrong password as well, sir. But I don't see any error message over there.
No, you should
Can you
see the
please?
error. It won't authenticate. So you created the different. So which remote that you are using? Remote Git, GitHub.
GitHub. Yes.
Okay. So instead of GitHub, you would have passed GitLab credentials or any password, any username and password. So you won't get authenticated with that. So definitely we will get the credentials error.
Yeah.
Meaning,
After the class, I will show you once. Okay.
yes. Let me update the IP address. Okay. So we have types of project here, right? So we have learned about freestyle, right? So we provide the all the details. Freestyle is basically the manual process. Okay. So we do configure Git in Jenkins, and we have kept Jenkins configuration, and we have executed in the execute shell, right? So whatever the requirement that we wanted, and we have done through freestyle project. Similarly, we do have pipeline, right? So we see here, and also we have multi-branch pipeline. So normally we use three in the organization. Okay, and you can also use multi-configuration project. Suppose if you want to configure multiple projects in a single Jenkins through master, you can use this. And suppose if you want to build a particular folder, and you can use this folder. Okay, and also for the organization folder. So suppose if, see here, you can see the below, you can see the definition: create a setup of multi-branch project subfolders by scanning the repositories. Okay, so these are all the projects that we use. And so I'm going to give some. Normally the organization uses freestyle pipeline and multi-branch pipeline. Okay, so I'll give the definition for those, and let's walk through the remaining concept from Jenkins. And soon after that, so let's discuss about the pipeline project, what we have in the pipeline, and what we want to do with the pipeline project. So here, right? So in the pipeline, so we have done with freestyle, right? And also we'll go with pipeline from scratch. Okay, now before moving into this pipeline, so I'll give the project types. So let's say types of project, right? There are three types. The very first, freestyle. Okay, the freestyle, the one we discussed, right? What is this freestyle? The basic requirement with integrating git. Okay, integrating git in Jenkins and manually Jenkins job setup, that we call it as freestyle. Okay, the basic requirement with integrating. Okay, so the basic requirement with integrating git in Jenkins manually, Jenkins job setup, manual job setup. Okay, so here we provide the basic requirement for the job setup by integrating git in Jenkins. And in pipeline also we integrate git in Jenkins in other way, but we provide manually. We have selected git as a SCM tool, right? Remember that when creating freestyle project, we selected git and we provided the repository URL, and we have chosen the git credentials, correct? Are you guys with me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes. Similarly, we also have pipeline. Okay, pipeline project. So where this pipeline project will come? Pipeline project will come here, right? Freestyle we have done, and the pipeline. So what is this? Let's discuss about this. So what is this pipeline? What it has? Okay. We do integrate. We do integrate with Groovy. Okay. So most of the language we use Groovy in Jenkins file. Okay, so I'll explain this, what is this Jenkins file and what we do with this Jenkins file. Okay, so all the jobs integrated in all the jobs integrated in single pipeline through Jenkins file. Okay, so here we need Groovy. So no need to learn Groovy here. So whatever the Jenkins requirement is enough to learn Groovy in Jenkins to create the Jenkins file. Okay, and so I'll explain what are all the uh, things that you guys have to learn from Groovy. So only that is enough. Okay, no need to learn Groovy here. Okay, Groovy is the coding language for Jenkins when we are writing a Jenkins file. Okay, now the third project is multi-branch pipeline. Okay, so multi-branch pipeline, the name itself is saying. So where we see this multi-branch pipeline? Multi-branch pipeline we see here in the bottom. Okay, to integrate with the multiple branches, we use multi-branch pipeline. Okay, according to the detected branches in one SCM repository. Okay, so whatever the SCM that you use, either GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket. So with respect to the remote Git that you used, it will identify, it will detect the branch, and it builds the particular branch code. Okay, that we use multi-branch pipeline. So this multi-branch we use in the large projects. Suppose if you have 200, 300 resources in a project, in a single project, we use multi-branch pipeline, right? So suppose if you have 200 resources, 200 member in a project, 200 branches should get built, right, simultaneously. There we use multi-branch pipeline. Okay, now I'll give the definition. Are you guys with me?
Yes, sir.
Multi-branch pipeline. So we do integrate. We do integrate with multiple branches with large projects. So when we integrate this, detected branches only will build. Okay, so detected branches only will build when we configure this multi-branch pipeline. Okay, now we understood that freestyle pipeline and multi-branch pipeline, right? Now let's focus on the pipeline now. Okay, what is this pipeline will be having, and what we do with this pipeline project? Okay, before configuring this pipeline project in Jenkins, we need to understand some basic requirement, then only we go configure with pipeline project. Okay, now, so as I told, integrating the multiple builds in a single job, which is written in groovy code, right? Which is written in groovy code in the sense which is written in the Jenkins file itself. Okay, so in the pipeline, again I'm going to give integrating the multiple builds in a single job. Yeah, which is written in in groovy code. Okay, so which is written in groovy code, that we call it as pipeline. So in the pipeline there are two types of pipelines. Okay, so when we select the pipeline as a project, so we do have, so when we select this pipeline project, okay, so we have two types of project in the pipeline. So what are those types? So the very first, there are two types of pipelines. Okay, so what are those? Okay, the very first, scripted scripted pipeline, and the second one, declarative pipeline. Okay, declarative pipeline. So declarative. Okay, so the scripted pipeline and the declarative pipeline. So let's learn what are these scripted pipeline and the declarative pipeline. Okay, the very first, scripted, this first scripted pipeline. Let's learn the scripted pipeline. So what it has and how do we create the scripted pipeline in Jenkins. So what is the scripted pipeline? This defines the old way of Groovy scripting and also defines the node block. Okay, and we use all bash commands here. Okay, in the scripted means we use the most of the commands in bash only. Okay, so that is the reason we call it as scripted pipeline. Scripted is basically the old way of Groovy scripting. Means the half of the code is in Groovy and half of the code is in bash. Okay, which has the node block. The very important point here is it has the node block. I'll give the definition. Okay, this defines the old way of defines the old way of Groovy scripting and also defines the node block here and also defines the node block. Okay, and this defines the node block. Okay, in the declarative pipeline defines the pipeline block. Okay, I'll explain in the declarative. And we use all bash commands here. Okay, so we use all bash commands here. So that is the reason we call it as scripted pipeline. Okay, in the declarative, so what we have the declarative pipeline. So we use declarative in all the project. Okay, because it is a new way of Groovy scripting. Okay, this declarative defines the new way of Groovy scripting. Scripted is old way. Okay, and then declarative is new way of Groovy scripting, and also it defines the pipeline block. Scripted defines the node block and declarative defines the pipeline block. So I'll explain why we call it as this node block and why declarative call pipeline we call it as pipeline block. Okay, so while writing a Jenkins file, so I'll explain what are these node block and the pipeline block. Don't get confused here. Give a definition. This defines the new way of Groovy scripting and also defines the pipeline block. Okay, and also defines the pipeline block. We use all the Groovy syntax here. We use all the Groovy syntax here. Okay, and here we use all bash commands, and here we use all the Groovy syntax. Okay, and I'm telling again and again, no need to learn Groovy, only the required amount of Groovy we can learn. Okay, only for the Jenkins purpose. Okay, so this scripted pipeline defines the node block and declarative pipeline defines the pipeline block. This is the major difference. Make sure that you guys are explaining the same. Okay, and this defines the old way of Groovy scripting. This has the new way of Groovy scripting, and here we use all the bash commands, and in the declarative we use all the Groovy syntax. So whatever the Groovy that we have, see if you can browse in any of the browser or if you googled it, you will get a Groovy for each stage. Okay, and now I have told that here in the pipeline. Okay, in the pipeline project, all the jobs integrated in a single pipeline through Jenkins file. Okay, so I have told this Jenkins file, and those two Jenkins files are might be scripted or might be declarative, right? Let's learn this further. Before moving to this scripted and declarative pipelines, we need to learn this Jenkins file. What is this Jenkins file, what it has, and why we need to use this Jenkins file in exactly in Jenkins as a tool, right? Now let's learn about the Jenkins file. So what it has, and why do we use, and what are all the parameters that it has in the Jenkins file. Okay, now just a minute, just a minute, please. Sorry. Okay, now we were discussing about the Jenkins file. So let's understand what is this Jenkins file and why we need to use this in Jenkins as a tool, as a Jenkins file. Okay, we use Jenkins file for the automation purpose in Jenkins. Okay, the file, it's basically the text file where we use to set up the Jenkins stages in terms of code, that is in Groovy or that is in Bash. Okay, either we use in scripted pipeline or declarative pipeline in the Jenkins file. Okay, so I'll give this way. It is a text file. See, ನೀವು ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ನಾನು ಬರ್ಸಿದ್ದೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಂತೇನಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ನಾನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಂತೇನಿಲ್ಲ. So if you understood in the way, you can create your own definition and you can explain that. Okay, so it's a text file. So where we use to set up, where we use to set up the Jenkins stages in terms of okay, in terms of okay, so in terms of code, that is scripted or declarative. Okay, in bracket it is in Groovy. Okay, so either we set up scripted pipeline or declarative pipeline in the Jenkins file. Okay, so we use both scripted and declarative pipeline, and we understood that scripted and declarative pipelines from Jenkins, and it has the node block and it has the pipeline block, and both we use in Jenkins file. It is basically the text file where we use to set up the Jenkins stages in the sense we call it as stages in Jenkins. So let's understand what are these stages. Okay, the sample Jenkins file for declarative pipeline is below. Okay, so for these example for these so let's give a sample example for declarative. Okay, example for declarative pipeline. Okay, so how it looks, started with pipeline. Okay, it is started with a pipeline, open a brace. Okay, we call it as flower braces. Okay, and agent, this is the complete the syntax of Jenkins file. So this is the example that I'm giving for declarative pipeline. Okay, so after the pipeline we provide the agent none, and then name is equals to dollar name, the variable that I'm defining. Okay, and also for def password is some dollar password, some dollar password. Okay, and similarly for def branch is equals to some, let's keep it as feature one. Okay, and this started with stages. Again open one more braces, the syntax is like this only. For tab and under stages there is a stage called clone, means cloning a repository, and open a one more brace for stages, and press tab. Under stage there is an agent as linux git. Okay, and soon after that there is a steps, open a brace, again one more brace. Under steps we provide the steps to execute as parameter, we also call it as param, as branch, and then use git clone command here, followed by the repo url, followed by the repo url, and close the steps here, and close the stage here, and again the next stage will be build. Okay, build, keep it in single quotes, and in the build open one more brace, and in the build let's define an agent as same again linux git, and under the stage we'll have to define steps, open a brace, and under steps we need to build the, suppose if you are building a java project we'll have to run maven command, right? Maven clean install, maven is the command to build the which project.
Java project.
Yes, now we'll close the steps here, and we'll close the stage here, and we'll close the stages here, and we'll close the pipeline here. Okay, I'll explain this. Are you guys able to see my screen clearly? Okay, so this is basically the example for declarative pipeline. Okay, so here we have never used the git command here. Okay, sorry, linux command. This is completely in the groovy. Okay, what it has, it is started with the pipeline block, correct? So what we have in the definition, in the declarative pipeline, this defines new way of groovy scripting and also defines the pipeline block. Is it started with the pipeline directly? Correct. So this is basically the pipeline block. Inside this pipeline block we are defining agent. I'll explain this, what are these agents, stages, stage, steps and all. Okay, so we have agent, stages, stage, and steps right here. Stages, stage, and steps. I'll explain this. So this is basically the declarative pipeline. It is started with a pipeline block and it has an agent block here. So there are types of agent, agent none, and we can, when you provide this agent none in the each stage, here you can see stages, right? Stages means, suppose if you have two stage, one is to clone the repository and the other one is to build the repository. So how we divided? We need to provide a stages. This is the declarative pipeline syntax for Jenkins file. This is what the Jenkins file that we use in an automated way without having a manual intervention. So what is Jenkins we have? Jenkins is a framework without manual intervention. We use these Jenkins file to do the automation. So when we run this Jenkins file in the Jenkins, everything is cloned in the repository and it get built. Simple. And we'll get a result from Jenkins dashboard. We can see that. Okay. So I'll explain where we keep this Jenkins file and how do we automate this. Before moving into that, we need to understand this thoroughly for a Jenkins file. Okay, so this Jenkins file will be having the declarative pipeline. So inside, out of this Jenkins file, either we can write scripted or declarative. Okay, we understood that what is this scripted and declarative. The scripted is basically the node block and it has the old way of Groovy scripting, and here we use bash commands. Similarly for declarative, the new way of Groovy script, and it has the pipeline block, and we use all the Groovy syntax here. So now the example for declarative pipeline is this. This started with a pipeline block, and soon after this pipeline block, we need to provide a tab here in between to start the next line. After that, it has the agent block. After defining an agent, these are all the variables that we use in this project. So the required variables we need to define before we start a stages. Pipeline block, agent block, and then stages. In between the agent block and the stages, we will have to define a variables according to the project requirement. Suppose this project is have will be having a name of dollar name and the password. Password normally we will not call this way. We'll use the credentials. Okay, let's delete this. Okay, and the branch. Suppose if I want to call this branch as a variable, I'm gonna call this way as def. Def is the Groovy to call the variable. Okay, keep in mind, def is the string that we use in Groovy to call the branch or any string. Def string, we call it as the string name. Def branch, we call the branch name. Def repository, we call the repository. Okay, this is from Groovy. Now, soon after this pipeline block and the agent block and the variable section, we have a stages block. Okay, we call it as blocks in Groovy in Jenkins file. Okay, in the stages, we need to provide, see, pipeline has agent block will be inside the pipeline, and then stages will be in the agent block itself. Okay, agent block and the stages should be in the same block, and this stages will be having two stages. It should go between the space. I mean, we need to provide the space here inside the stage. Inside the stages, stage should come. Inside the stage, steps should come. This is what the syntax we need to follow in the Jenkins file. This is basic and mandatory. Okay, the pipeline, inside the pipeline it has the agent block, stages block. Inside the stages we have stage block. Inside the stage we have steps block. Okay, I'll explain this stages, stage, and steps. Okay, so you understood this, right? Pipeline block, agent block, and then stages. These three are important. Now, so what the stages will be having? Let's say there are two stages. Like what are those? Clone and build. How do we define that? Stage as clone opened with brace. For stages, we opened with braces here, and inside the stage, we define the stage as clone. Inside the stage, suppose if you provide agent none, you need to provide agent for each stage. Remember that where we created this agent, where we created this agent in Jenkins.
In master.
Nodes.
Exactly, we created as node, right?
Yes.
That node label we are pointing here in the each stage. If you provide agent none, we Jenkins file required to define the agent for each stage. Suppose if you provide directly agent as Linux or agent as AWS Linux Git, no need to provide here, because each stage will not require an agent, because all these stages will run on this particular agent only. Okay, so when we provide agent none, okay, when we provide agent none means this pipeline does not have any agent, but each stage is required to run an agent as AWS Linux Git, and it is required to define here in each stage. Okay, you understood this? If you provide agent none, each stage should require to define an agent. Suppose if you define agent directly in the here, no need to define the agent in each stage. You can keep it at once at top in the agent block here. Clear with this, everybody? And in the stages, stage, clone repository, and then agent, it is required to define an agent. Why? Because we have defined agent none. Soon after that, the stage will be having steps. So what is this steps? Make sure that you guys should provide the space here, and to start with an agent, to start with steps. So what we need to provide in the steps? In the steps for clone, so what we are doing here, cloning a repository, right? So to clone the repository, what we need? We need a branch and the URL, right? Remember that in the freestyle as well, we provided the URL of the repository, branch, and the credentials, right? Correct, right?
Yes.
Similarly, here also we need the credentials as dollar creds. Okay, so here also we need three things. One is the branch, other one is the repository, third one is the credentials. Okay, so we will configure all these three in the Jenkins, and we configure it in this particular stage. Okay, this we use in the steps for the cloning stage. Okay, clear with this? Clear with the clone stage? And for the steps, we have opened the brace here where we closed. The steps is started here. We close the brace at the same line. This is what we need to follow the proper Groovy syntax. Okay. So where we start the steps, here we need to clone the braces. Similarly, where we started the stage and where we opened, so we opened after the space, we opened the brace here, and where we closed in the stages here. Clear? This is what we have done in the for loop and while loop, where we open the brace, we closed it, right? Similarly, here also we need to do, we started, open the steps block, we open means these commands will run inside this loop. That's how Groovy works. Simple. This is enough for Groovy. Okay, ಈ syntax ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ರೆ you will be succeeded in writing a Groovy. Simple. Okay, these three commands will be running inside this steps loop. That's it. Simple. You opened a brace here and you closed it. Similarly, for the stage, you opened here and you closed it. Okay, now this is the cloned stage, right? And what is our second stage? The stage is build. Okay, and here we've opened a brace, and then similarly the agent block, so it is required to run the agent as AWS Linux Git, and under the steps we need to run the command to build our Java project. So how do we build when we configure maven means? So which project that we are using? The project is Java. right? That is the reason in the steps I'm using this maven clean install deploy is the command to build the Java project. So we will build one CMake project and we will build one Java project. So to build that, we need to understand thoroughly what are these pipeline, what are these agent block, what are these variables, what are these stages. Inside the stages, we have stage. Inside the stage, we have steps. Inside the steps, we need to write these commands to clone a repository. And similarly, for see, you can write 100 stages in each Jenkins file. You can configure each in one Jenkins file. Okay, and similarly, this stage will be having build, agent block, and then steps. Steps braces we closed here. Sorry, we've opened here and we closed in the same line. And similarly for the stage, we've opened here the brace and closed here in the same. Okay. If you copy this in the it into notepad, you will see the red highlighted with this opened and closed. Okay. And now we have closed all the stage. These two stage we closed, correct? So are we aligned with syntax in Groovy for declarative pipeline? Are you guys are able to understand this? Okay. Now we have stages block that we opened, correct? And we opened a braces. Where we closed? We closed at here, correct? Right? So is it in the order way? You were able to understand or not? We open the stages here and we open a brace, and this brace we closed here. Okay, that's how you will see the order and the closing of braces. The stages we closed here, and there is one more at the bottom, right? So above the stages, what we have above the stages, there is one more brace for main pipeline, correct? Here we opened, and where we closed here, correct? Right? Okay, we opened here and we closed, correct? And that is the reason to identify this I have told you to download VS Code. Okay, if you copy this in VS Code, you can identify easily as a syntax. If there are any errors, you can identify easily. Okay, if you copy this and go to VS Code and copy the Jenkins file here directly. Okay, so this is what we have to do, the Groovy as a Jenkins file. This is the declarative pipeline. Clear with this, everybody? And going forward, we'll use VS Code. Okay, everybody installed VS Code.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now this is an example for the declarative pipeline. Guys, nobody will explain this kind of explanation in any of the institute. You can go and check. Okay, but if you're not able to understand, if you're not getting this, ask a question here, because these things only you guys need to work on it. ಓಕೆ, ಈ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆದರೆ ಇದೇ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇದೇ ಕೆಲಸ ಬರೀಬೇಕಲ್ಲಿ, ಪೈಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕು, ಜೆಂಕಿನ್ಸ್ ಫೈಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಎನಿ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್, ಎನಿ ಡೌಟ್ಸ್, ಯು ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಮೀ. Okay, now let's move to the, so this is what we use in the declarative, right? Correct, right? And I'll give a sample for scripted. So how the scripted example for scripted sample for scripted pipeline. So how this scripted pipeline looks like. So what we have in the scripted pipeline, it is started with the node block, right? Node, we will write here node. We'll directly define a node here as Linux Git. Okay, and it is started with directly started with, after defining a node, it is started with stages. Okay, and open a brace. Let's increase the font size. Okay, in the scripted pipeline. So the node block, directly it started with the node block and then stages. Inside this stage, there will be a stage after the space. There will be a stage. For stage, we can, sorry, we define as clone for the clone stage. The above requirement only, I'm defining the stage in scripted pipeline. Inside this stage, there is a steps. Okay, inside the steps, open a brace. Inside these steps, there is a command called git clone followed by the URL of the repo of rep. Okay, and the steps we close here, and the stage I'm gonna close here, and then stages I'm gonna close here. Okay, this is just an example for scripted pipeline. Scripted pipeline means it starts with node block, right? And the declarative pipeline starts with pipeline block. Okay, clear? And everything is same only. But the stages, stage, inside the stages we should have stage. Inside the stage we should have steps. Inside the steps we should have command based on the stage that you used in your project. Clear for the scripted pipeline? And there are slight syntax will change comparatively scripted and declarative. Okay, and the steps have closed here, and then stage I have closed here, and then stages I have closed here. Clear? ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ? This is an example for scripted pipeline. Now we have in both the pipelines we have the, sorry, in the declarative pipeline we have agent block, right? So I have told that agent block, stages, stage, and steps. Let's understand this. This we call it as pipeline block. This we call it as agent block. This we call it as stage block, stages block, stage block, and then steps. Okay. Let's understand this. What are these agents? Okay. So what are these agents? Why we use the platform that we use to run the Jenkins stages? That we call it as agents. Agent, node, slave. All three are same, and we are aware of to create a node, to create an agent. Where we go under manage Jenkins. Shit. Started giving a trouble. And that's where is the next credential? The next credential is here. Username and then password. Okay, and we go here. Okay, so here we go here in the nodes. Okay, and we provide a node name, and here there is a, we have created one node, right? So here only we configure an agent. This we call it as agent. This also we call it as node. This also we call it as a slave. Okay, all three are same only. Now when we use this declarative pipeline, the agent block, so what are these agents then? The platform that we use to run the Jenkins stages, the platform that we use to run the stages, Jenkins stages, that we call it as agents. Okay, now inside this agent there are types of agents that we use. Agent any, okay, and also agent none. Okay, agent any or agent none. So when we provide this agent any or agent none, so where we provide agent any and agent none, when we provide agent any, okay, so here we can define agent any in the each stage. So Jenkins required to run each stage to run the slave. Each stage to run the sorry. When we provide this agent any, here no need to define an agent. Okay, and here also no need to define an agent. But when we provide agent none in the main block, but each stage should require to run on particular sorry on particular node for particular stage. Control C, and then the stage we should define the agent. You were able to understand this difference between agent none and agent any. Okay, so I'll give the definition. When we provide agent any, so it will pick the available agents. Okay, so it will pick the available slave in Jenkins. It will pick the available it will pick the available slave in Jenkins. Slave, node, agent, all three are same. Okay, and in case of agent none, it will not pick the available agent or node. It will not pick the available agent or slave. It looks for the particular node for particular stage. Particular node for particular stage. Okay, so it looks for particular node for particular stage. Okay, so that is the reason we use agent any or agent none in the declarative pipeline. Okay, clear with this? See, once we create this na, once we configure this in the Jenkins node, you will see the executors, available executors, right? So when we provide this agent any, it will pick the available slave in Jenkins to run the stages. Okay, when we provide here agent any here, it will pick the available agent slave and runs all the stages, and no need to provide this agent in each stage. But when we provide agent none, it will not look for the the available slave, but the stages required to run the slave this way. That is the reason we use agent none, and whatever the requirement that you can use either you can use agent any or agent none. Okay, so we'll use these in the Jenkins pipeline going forward. Okay, clear with these agents? Inside these agents, we will be having agent any or agent none. This is the agent block. Okay, clear for everybody? And soon after this agent, what we have? Stages, correct? After the agent block, what we have? Stages, right? So what is this stages? I'll give a definition for stages. Okay, so what are these stages? Yes, anybody want to speak here?
So, Sandeep, that is agent none, right? You type agent node.
Okay, agent none. Yes, agent none. Okay, now I'll give a definition for stages. So what it has is stages required to run the integrate all the stage. Sorry, integrate all the stage and steps in a single block. In a single block, that we call it as stages, right? Inside the stages we have steps. Inside the stages we have stage and steps. So what this define presents, this defines the single block of particular task. Okay, this defines the single block single block of particular task. Okay, so that's why we call it as stage. See, stages integrate all the stage and steps in a single block, but inside these stages we have stage. This defines the single block of particular task, right? single block of single block of Sorry, this is a single block of a particular task. What is here particular task? Particular task is to clone the repository, correct? A single block of particular task. Here, the stage has single block and it has a particular task to build the V1 project. Okay, these two are separate, right? Single block of particular task to clone the repository, single block of clone the build the project for particular project, for a particular repository. So this is what we define inside the stages, stage, and what else? Stages, stage, and steps. Correct. And what's this steps defines? This steps represents. Okay, this defines the commands to execute the step. Right. This defines the commands to execute the step. Okay, so this defines the commands to execute the step. This is what we do in the step. So steps is here, and here we use the command by defining a branch, and here is the git clone command, and here is the credentials to authenticate for this repository. And similarly for build, under the steps we are defining a command. So here is the command to build the Maven project, to build the Java project. This is what the definition. This defines the commands to execute the step. Are you guys cleared with agent block, stages, stage, steps, and the pipeline block started here in the Jenkins file? Here, pipeline block, okay, agent block, stages block, stage block, and steps. So clear for everybody? And then types of project in the pipeline, scripted and declarative. And when we use scripted and when we use declarative, that you can decide from your own project requirement. And the Jenkins file, definition for Jenkins file. And there are two types of pipeline that we use. The example for the pipeline is declarative is here, and for the scripted pipeline example is here. And the blocks that we explained, agents, agent any or agent none, and then stages, stage and steps. Any questions on this? These things are very important going forward. I'm going to use one pipeline to build the project. I'm going to use all these pipeline block, agent block, stages, stage, and steps. Okay, now I'll show one simple sample example from Jenkins. How do we create a pipeline so that you can also create from your own. Okay, so we'll go here, new item, provide pipeline one. Okay, as a project, instead of selecting a freestyle, you go with pipeline block, pipeline project, click OK, and this will redirect to the configure page of pipeline. Here the tabs are different, right? Go down. Okay, in the pipeline block, here you can see the pipeline, right? In the pipeline block, here you can see try sample pipeline, try with sample pipeline or with any you can provide with this hello world. You can see the pipeline block automatically. Agent any, stages, inside the stages there will be a stage, inside stage there is a steps, and just to print an echo, just save, click on build now. Okay, so here you can see the build. Okay, and we should be able to see the we'll go to the console output, and we should be able to see to print, just to print hello world. Okay, this is what we create in the pipeline project. Okay, there are a lot of things to learn in pipeline. This is just a sample basic pipeline to run. Here you can see the pipeline. They started, okay, and the workspace, and then pipeline success. Okay, so we'll use some of the other pipeline project will build through pipeline only. Okay, now how do we see this in Blue Ocean? You click on here. Blue Ocean is, as I told, to view the visualization of each block. You go here, click on this, you can see the visualization. Okay, so here you can see the blocks visualization, right? It started and printed hello and then ends. If there are any other stages, it would have printed here. Okay, clear with this, everybody? This is what we do create. We configure pipeline in Jenkins. So we use Jenkins file to write each stage, and this is very important. So going forward, we configure in the Jenkins file only. Everything we automate through this Jenkins file. This is very important. Okay. So any questions and any doubts on this topic? ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ? And I see that some of the candidates are not configured the agent. So you guys are just simply running the workspace agent. Where is the dedicated agent in an assignment? So I told you guys to run with dedicated agent, right? Yes, I'm asking you. I've
Yes, sir.
seen that.
Created, sir.
Uh, what happened?
Created, sir. Agent created.
Agent is created, but where you pointed and where you ran the pipeline by using that agent. I will ping in the group those who are not used an agent. Okay. Any questions on today's topic? Anything that you guys have to understand?
Uh,
Clear for everybody?
Sandeep, I have one doubt.
Uh,
Here we have branches, right? Branch and feature one. If you want to send the dynamic branches like 1, 2, 3, so we can send like that, or we have to manually add feature one, feature two like that.
no, no, no. What is your question?
ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಬ್ರಾಂಚಸ್ ನಾಲ್ಕೈದು ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲ,
Mm-hmm.
ಸೊ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಬ್ರಾಂಚ್ ನಾವೇ ಫೀಚರ್ ಒನ್ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕ್ತಿದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಡೈನಾಮಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಲೈಕ್ ಫೀಚರ್ ಒನ್ ಫೀಚರ್ ಟು ಲೈಕ್ ಫಾರ್ ಲೂಪ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು
Mm.
ಆ ಥರ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ ಅಂತ.
Yes, you can do it here. Okay, for I in dollar branch. Okay, so it will read your branch, and suppose if you have feature 2 comma feature 3 and feature 4, you can use these as branch. And suppose if this for loop is now, it will come inside the for loop. Okay, and then do it looks for only this particular branch, first feature 1, then go for feature 2, feature 3 and feature 4, and close the for loop is done.
Okay, so
Right,
yeah,
so you can use this, but you will have to use the scripted pipeline. So wherever you use, that's what the difference, right? So in the scripted, we use all the bash commands and we use all the groovy syntax. Suppose if you're using groovy syntax, you should be in declarative pipeline, and we also use this loop for in groovy as well.
okay,
Okay.
okay, so thank you.
Yes. Any questions, any doubts? Okay, if no questions, let's wind up the session. Let's connect to D4 Q&A. Yesterday I could not able to take Q&A. So the classes will be regular, okay? Don't miss to join the sessions in morning. But evening might be depends on our engagement. Like when we engaged in other calls or other discussion, we are unable to take the Q&A, okay? Apart from that, classes will be regular. Morning session. If no class, I would have informed in either 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Yesterday it was extended. The call is extended till 1 o'clock for me, and that is the reason I could not able to take the Q&A. Okay. Okay, then let's connect evening for Q&A. Tomorrow same session for class. Okay. I'll share this in the group. Go through this and try to create one simple project from the pipeline and understand that. Okay, let's discuss about more in pipelines, and we'll create a sample Jenkins file and we'll execute multiple stages, and we'll see how the Jenkins looks and what are all the feature that we can implement through this Jenkins file. Okay, fine then. Thanks, guys. We'll connect tomorrow. Bye bye.